All right, I got something really cool to share with you guys. That is the SYL TS version 2.0. I'm guessing the TS stands for Trolley System, which is basically a semi-cheaper alternative to the bulletproof VTS, both of which I was eyeing for some time because as you guys can see, I think I have the only Force USA all-in-one trainer or squat rack functional trainer that does not have a Smith machine. For a number of reasons, I was thinking about picking one of these up because I did not want a dedicated Smith machine because I just knew I wasn't gonna use it that much, kind of figured get in the way. And I knew there was things like this that existed, and this seemed like the best option for me. So I'm gonna jump right into it, give you guys my unfiltered response on what I think about this thing, go over the general pros and cons, what comes with the attachments, go over the pricing, the build quality, all that stuff. Timestamps are down below in the description box. If you find this at all helpful, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. And they were also gracious enough to help support me in the channel if you guys do want to use the promo code Mike. That saves you guys some money off their system here. The shipping was totally fine. Everything was essentially wrapped in this foam type plastic, random parts. There was no manual at all whatsoever. And I would say this whole system is not that complicated, but I did look on their website to kind of put a couple things together of how they wanted things to work. Pretty much this thing is a simplistic system, which I actually do appreciate about it. I'll get into pricing in a second because that kind of breaks down what you're getting. You're not getting this whole package. They threw in a bunch of attachments here. So they give you a pulley system. So if it goes without saying, you can make this a trolley system, which works out really good. I'll get into that towards the end. You get a pulley. You get these little attachment anchor points here. They gave me a landmine attachment, which I honestly did not use. I don't think I will use it because I have a landmine. It's pretty basic. I think you can figure out how it works, and I'm sure it'll work fine. They gave me these bench arms. You have weight holders on the side. They gave you a bunch of cables, some random spare parts. They give you these 1-inch pull pins, and I did tell them a while back, I'll get to the spacing here. This is a 3x3 1-inch hole rack, so I think they told them initially, and that's why maybe they sent this to me waiting for this version 2. What I think these rollers are actually for, judging from the pictures, is that you're supposed to squeeze these on, and I'm not even really gonna force it, but you put 2 on each end, and that would kind of protect the metal from kind of hitting this metal bar, just kind of protecting it a little bit. But from what I'm seeing on the way it's designed, at least on this new version, this version 2, where they got the wheels on the outside, that would be more of a concern with me if it was gonna bang the rollers. But there's this little kind of metal divot here that I think if you can even push it all the way in, I think it's fine, but it's uneven from the other side, so it's off-centered. If you pull it out a little bit, it'll sit nice and flush. And on the other side, I'll kind of peek around here. You can see you got plenty of room. Now what I would probably buy that I did not see came with it just as an extra safety protocol, I would just get one of these little pins here, and this would kind of further any kind of accidents sort of pop out. But honestly, I don't think that's a concern, but just to be extra safe, picking up a pair of these would be good. All right, now showing you guys these lateral raise arms. Pretty primitive in design, but it works good. I just hand tighten the Olympic plate holders. I think you'd want to go further down, but of course you can put this anywhere you'd want to. The arms, kind of thin, just basic. Seems like kind of thin metal, but you don't need anything crazy. But then there's a little pull pin here to kind of secure your lateral raise arm. Now what I did, I'm not sure if this is the best way or how you're supposed to do it. I just took out the top pin, put the bottom pin here. This way you get a little more range of motion. It's going to stop to a certain height. But then I also put in this spacer here that was for the push pin here to kind of secure that metal. And this just allows it so it's not going to have a lot of lateral or a lot of forward and back movement. But I think if you were kind of standing off and you were kind of pulling it to one side, this might not even be a big deal. You might not even necessarily need that. Overall, I would say these minor accessory parts are not heavy duty made. You can kind of, I think you can tell up close, they're not, I'm sure they're going to last fine, last a while, but they're not, you know, rugged, hard metal based on the price, which I'll get into here in a second. Up close where it counts on the actual trolley, this felt, in my opinion, fairly substantial for what it was. Just to get a little closer with the trolley, you guys saw how I installed this. Just simply took the rollers off, put them back on, and then you're good. To take some of these attachments off, the little accessories, I just put it in this way, leave the top one in. This way you can grab your other accessory, just set it on top, slip the push pin right to the bottom, and you're good. Then to get you guys kind of really up close, how this thing closes and locks down, just this little twist on screw is what seals it. You just hand tighten, it seems to do the job. I was surprised just how, you know, secure it felt. I thought with this much, it seems kind of minimal, but it seems to work out fine. You actually can see the Agro 3 bar, which is one of the sharpest barbells or knurling that I have, really ate up this roller. But otherwise, I like that it has these little rollers. That's something you kind of feel, this kind of smooth roll of the barbell when you're using it. sits up close. Just want to show you guys the sound it makes. Very smooth, not a whole lot of, there's not a whole lot of play. I mean, I think it's pretty secure. I mean, not a whole lot for, what you'd expect. I don't really feel any kind of forward or backward pulling whenever I'm using it, but of course when you do that, there's gonna be a little bit of a pull, but otherwise, I think it rolls up and down pretty smooth. Something else to note is that with these holders here, you can unscrew this and then put on standard plates if you just want to use the 1-inch standard plates instead of the Olympic plates. Cable configuration, I just did something really basic. I saw this little plate here. There's a little screw-on bolt there. It's not the most sophisticated thing in the world. One push pin here. Honestly, it works. Short cable comes right down here. And I just looped it around. I had this little, I think this went to a resistance band, so just a little strap that I just looped underneath this hook. This seems to work good, no problems, feels really smooth. I see a little bit of maybe an initial give here, but I just hand tighten that. Works totally fine. If you go on the website, there is a little article here about the difference between the version 2.0 and the 1.0. And primarily, like I said, the biggest thing is on the rollers are situated laterally on the side of the machine, which I think is a big plus. I'm pretty sure the Bulletproof VTX still has them in front, but I'm sure they made accommodations for it primarily because of the hook system. But since you're not using a hook system, I think this is really key so that the push pin doesn't prematurely wear out the rollers, just protects them. I also think it allows a little more versatility with how it kind of feels. They give you a little check mark on each side and really just shows you, I think the version 2 just is a little more versatile, in my opinion, with the version 1 is going to be cheaper. Now, talking about price, if you actually go to the site and you go to the version 2, you're going to notice things start to kind of add up pretty quickly. So it would be great if this whole set was, say, under $400, maybe in the $300 range, but you kind of have to piecemeal this stuff. So essential stuff you're going to need is definitely a pair of the single just trolley system. You're going to want a pair of the barbell seats that if you're going to use it for a Smith machine. And then I would say getting at least a bench handlebar, but if you basically start playing around in here, they didn't give me the dip bar. They gave me the pulley system, the swivel singles. That's something else you want to buy doubles of those you can. They have some customizable hitch pins. And then if you scroll down, you will see, this is the part that's kind of confusing for me because I don't see how you order this if you have a smaller rack. They do emphasize the idea that it can fit various dimensions. I have the 3x3. I assume that's probably pretty easy to go. Maybe this is one of the reasons they don't have it up here. This might be a brand new product, but I assume if you just were to write a note when you place the order, say I got a 3x3 1-inch hole rack, I think that would be fairly standard. And that's one of the reasons I think most people do recommend. And I've been gravitating why I wanted this particular Force USA X15 because I wanted the 3x3 1-inch holes. Also happy too that this Force USA does not have 1-inch lateral holes. That was a downside. So I was actually very happy that this fits and situates on my rack. So that's probably the only confusing thing, but if you actually went to the shopping cart and you add all this stuff up, you're looking at I would say actually the bare essentials, if you're just getting the pair of trolleys, come in singles, you gotta get 2 of the versatile power rack trolleys and then get the power rack trolley system for the bench seat, whatever. You're looking at $367, that's with if you throw a discount in there, which is about $100, I think $40 cheaper than the VTX. Getting into performance and how this thing really felt, first starting off with just the basic Smith machine option, felt really good. And actually before I even go on that, I will say the biggest thing for me, which is huge, is that this thing fit pretty good in the configurations of my rack. So the last thing I want to do is take this thing on and off consistently. So I did find out that for me, even with the top pulley on the Force USA, it gets out of the way, it clears. I can lower this thing all the way to the ground and lower my top pulley and still do bicep curls. So for me, I'm just gonna leave it on where it was. Installation also was very easy. I mean, it would take you probably 5 minutes total to take this thing on and off. You just unscrew the rollers and then put them back on. So installation was kind of a no-brainer, fairly easy to do on and off. But going back to the Smith machine, I would say it definitely probably exceeded my expectations on a product like this. It felt no different than some of the Smith machines I've tried as far as the all-in-one stuff that I've tried. That includes some of the Force USA stuff. It feels super smooth, and obviously they operate independently of each other, which when you first start doing it, you'll notice a little bit of that. Like there's just that tiny bit of maybe uneasiness or give between each sides, but it's very minor. I'd say when you push equally, you're just gonna move the exact same time. Just did your basic, barbell stuff, played around with that. And then I did some benching with it and put on these bench porn things here. Feels really good. I actually like this more than the flat bar bench, which I would say is a pro if you already, I'm gonna say if you already have a Smith machine, of course that's great, but one of the great things is if you don't have a Smith machine, you're considering this with your power rack, this is kind of a one-up because now you can actually, of course, take the bar off and a little more versatility just using single arms. I personally like the way this felt compared to the flat bar as far as benching was concerned. Of course, you could use this thing for shoulder presses as well. I'd recommend having safety bars in here, but I would say the overall function, the biggest thing is since you do not have the hooks, you're relying on the push pin. The only thing you basically have to do is just start lower, find an angle that works for you. If you got a lot of holes on your squat rack, that's gonna be a huge plus for you, but honestly, I felt it was fine. I didn't really feel like I was missing out anything not having the latch pins. And in some way, again, I kind of preferred it. It's one less extra step of things to kind of take on and take off if I was using something that's a little more intricate. Again, my own personal needs, because I'm probably not going to be using this Smith machine often. So the lateral raise attachment, you guys can see how I configured this. Also felt good. I wouldn't say it was really bad at all. I mean, probably not as good as some of the heavy duty built ones, but for what it is, it's definitely decent. Is this something I'd spend extra on? I would say only if you're really going to use it to a certain degree. Pulley attachment also surprised me in a number of ways. One, just how simple it was. They just give you a short pulley. Worked on my system as well, which, believe it or not, if I did not have a functional trainer, as far as press downs and back exercises, this thing felt great. I mean, especially with my super bench lined up with the little pads in there, I was able to adequately do a lat pull down, try some extensions, felt excellent. I think I might have said this earlier, but actually feels smoother than my Force USA functional trainer because of the roller mechanism in the trolley. Of course, it's an extra step, loading and unloading it, but I thought the trolley system worked out great. I think from just that, I summarized a lot of the pros there, but if I get into some of the cons, of course, the big thing, if you're looking to get this for a squat rack into a Smith machine configuration, you do not have the clips. So it is a little cumbersome to say you want to adjust this thing on the fly to kind of pull the pins out or take the weights off and adjust the setting. And of course, if you want to just start or unrack, say on the top of a rack position for squats, that would be something that is an issue and a little bit of annoyance. But some people might find that as a positive because now you don't have to deal with that extra thing of dealing with hooks. This whole unit, especially if you start adding the parts, can still be pricey and add up. So it might kind of deflect from the cost of, say, investing in the bulletproof system, which I actually do have a link with them if you guys are curious. I'll link that down below as well. Some of the parts and metalling can feel a little cheaper, but like I said, where it really counts in the trolley, that thing feels, at least to me, fairly substantial. So my overall thoughts and wrapping up with this, I would say first I'll talk about for me personally. I think this thing is great for my personal needs because I'm not someone who's going to use a Smith machine that often. That's why I did not want a dedicated one, because I just didn't want a bar going across, kind of maneuvering it in and out, also to add some extra space. This was exactly what I wanted. I wanted something that was that I could fairly take on and off pretty easy, but primarily what really works out for me, and I kind of lucked out, is that with this particular configuration, based on what I'm seeing here, I'm just going to leave mine plugged in and kind of let it set at the bottom. And we'll see as time goes on if you'll see I actually leave it there and how often I use it. But the exercises I really love in this, of course, works out great doing things like barbell squats. I love these handles primarily for the pressing and probably shoulder pressing. I'll be using that. If I did not have a functional trainer, or even I have this Force USA tower I just covered earlier, and in some ways this kind of takes off the Force USA, or sorry, the Ironmaster trainer here too, Ironmaster tower, because this trolley works out just as good, if not better, than the Ironmaster tower, if I'm being honest. So if you just had a squat rack configuration and you want to save yourself on space, you want to feel like you're not missing out on using things like Smith machines, you want something that's fairly small and portable, does the job, I think this thing is a no-brainer. However, the biggest thing is now this thing isn't really necessarily that cheap. So if you wanted to invest in, say, the VTS system, even the VTS Lite, it's still a big heavy-duty unit, but I assume going forward they're going to have other options and accessories to kind of add on to that. If I was pricing this out for myself individually for my needs, I definitely would get of course, the trolley Smith machine holder for the barbell, and then I would get these hooks too, because these things I think are make a big difference. That is it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you want to save some money off anything off their website, use the promo code Mike. Helps me out and supports the channel. If anything happens with this particular system, because I'm going to be using this thing a lot, I can probably guarantee that, I will definitely pin a comment down below if anything happens. So stay tuned for that. Any questions, comments, feedback, let me know, and I'll see you on the next video.